the songs that he likes. And nowadays I'm repeat the songs that I like, and I put Let There Be Death for him to hear all day long for 24 hours in a sequence. Hello everyone, I'm Victor Augusto and you're watching Evermetal. And today I had the pleasure to interview Nige Rockett, which is the guitarist and founding member of Onslaught. Onslaught is a legendary band coming from the UK. During the 80s, the band released important albums like Power from Hell, The Frost, and In Search of Sanity. Despite they stopped their activities in the 90s, they returned in 2006, and since that they've been releasing incredible albums and touring a lot. We could chat with Nige about the early days, but we mostly talked about the new album Origins of Aggression, which is a double album. One of them they re-recorded old songs from Onslaught, and the second part they recorded covers on important punk rock bands and heavy metal bands. Nige, thanks for coming. Thanks for your time to join us at Evermetal. How are you, mate?
I'm fine, Victor. Thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing good. It's Friday. It's always good on Friday.
Yeah.
So my first question about the early days is going back more than 40 years to when the band was formed. What were your goals and dreams at that time? Did you ever imagine how far you would go?
I guess we didn't really have too many ambitions then. We're just young kids starting a band. Um, you don't really look too far into the future, just to the next rehearsal maybe or the next gig you play. So there was no kind of plan that we were going to make records or tour the world. Nothing like that. It was just one rehearsal at a time, one song at a time, maybe play another cover version at the time. So there was no big master plan to make Onslaught a global band.
Did you have changed your plans or mindset when you returned with the band?
No, not really. It was just the kind of, I mean, my first goal was to try and um, make an album that should have been In Search of Sanity. I was kind of disappointed with the way things ended. Um, uh, that In Search of Sanity wasn't a real true Onslaught record for me.
Mhm.
So when we came back, that was my first goal, was to try and make that record that it should have been, aggressive and heavy Onslaught music. So that was the first thing that was in my mind immediately. It took a kind of a little while to get back into the swing of writing again because it had been such a long layoff. So I think Killing Peace was probably the first track I wrote for that album when we came back. And once I got that in my head and the formula of how to do it again, everything kind of fell in place nice and easily.
It was great when we returned. I remember actually I discovered Onslaught when we returned with Killing Peace
Cool.
because the band came to Brazil. I live in Brazil, and the band came to Brazil in 2009. It was when I started to look in more informations about Onslaught,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you returned, mate.
Thank you.
I have a question about this first South America tour later, but let's keep talking about now. I want to talk about the current lineup. You have the bassist Jeff Williams alongside with you since this returning. Important is to have a long time member like Jeff at your side.
I mean, it's very important. I mean, we make all the decisions together, so we can trust each other. Um, yeah, it's very important that he's there alongside, rather than me just making decisions on my own. Well, we are fairly a band that tends to discuss everything together, but eventually the decisions come down to myself and Jeff and our management, really. So it's very important that we're both there working away for the band.
I imagine you have many decisions to take outside of the stage, many things that happens outside of the stage behind the curtains.
Yeah, I mean, especially this is a very eventful band, and Jeff also the artist and looks after all the kind of side of the social media stuff. So he does most of the artwork for the album sleeves and all the posters and the t-shirts. So he's got his important role to play as I do writing the music. So it's a good partnership.
It looks like you have a solid formation since 2018 because the Wayne Dorman guitars and James Perry on drums joined the band at that time. We all know the musical skills. You released Generation Antichrist before in 2020, but could you tell me a bit around the importance to the band's activities off stage, behind the curtains as well?
I mean, it's nice to have a stable lineup for so long. How long that will remain, I don't know. For some reason, Onslaught and thrash metal bands in particular seem to have a lot of lineup changes. I mean, you look at Exodus, Testament, etc. I mean, all the bands seem to go through many different musicians with a core base of a couple of members maybe. But everybody plays their part behind. I mean, Wayne does a lot of writing with me now, and James is more of an organizer of tours and stuff. So we all kind of have our own roles behind the scenes for the band, which takes the load off of each member rather than me or Jeff doing everything, booking flights and booking tours, you know. So it's good that we have a strong team together.
And the last member that joined up the band was David Garnett, the vocalist. We all know that he was very well received for what I could see, but I'm curious because album Generation Antichrist was released in the middle of all that COVID-19 pandemic chaos. And what was the reaction of the fans for that album, considering you couldn't tour at that time?
Yeah, the response was amazing. Probably one of the best responses from the public and the press of all the Onslaught albums, you know. But it was a tough decision to make, to release during lockdown. But I think it was the right decision, even though we couldn't go out and tour that album at the time. I mean, as you say, not many bands were active at all then. We managed to record the album and get it mixed during lockdown with a few. We had to bend a few rules here and there, but we did it, and we decided with the label it should be an actually good time to release music because not many bands were putting stuff out then, and it gave us an opportunity for the fans, metal fans in general, to focus on new releases, which there weren't many. So we gained a lot of attention by doing that. And it was incredible. I think I'd done over like 200 interviews at the time, which was amazing. So from the press point of view, it was incredible to release that album during lockdown. Obviously, the downside, we couldn't tour it, but it did amazing for us. So the decision was correct in the end, I think.
You returned touring to promote this album in 2022, right?
Yeah. And in 22, I suffered some health issues then, so I had to kind of step aside for 3 years. But the band carried on without me to obviously keep the profile active and let fans know we were still there. They did an amazing job in my absence. But thankfully, I'm back now. Not quite fully fit yet, but I'm back ready to tour with the new record, so, which is kind of exciting.
What did you have, mate, about your health?
Yeah, I had some serious problems. I had 2 operations on my spine, so no more head banging, unfortunately. Which is the surgeon said that was part of the problem. It had caused problems in the back of my neck from the head banging over the years, and I also had a few cancer operations as well. So thankfully they're all cleared up now as well. So just recovery and lots of physiotherapy, really. So I think I'm about 70%, 75% now. So I've still got a little way to go yet.
Can't bang our heads for you. It was exactly my next question because I was checking few videos of Onslaught on stage. I saw one that David Garnett was playing guitar. It was at the Obscene Extreme Festival in Czech Republic. I was about to ask you, but you answered about your spine. I hope you will get better soon.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, no more head banging, although it's very difficult we just come back from some warm up shows in Scotland, and it's so hard not to headbang when you're playing. Very difficult.
I can imagine, especially for a thrash metal band when you bang your heads all the time with the
Yeah,
energy.
it's hard, man.
Well, but now you signed with Rain Phoenix Music, and the band is about to release a new album, Origins of Aggression. I received the album to review. My review is going to be on Evermetal in a few days, I believe. For me, I just had to listen to the 60th track to have 100% sure that is one of the best albums of the year. I can say that you paid a tribute, not only for the bands that influenced it, but paid a tribute for the band as well, for Onslaught as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm glad you like it. But yeah, I mean, it's 40 years of Since Power from Hell release, and the original plan, we were going to re-record that album. It's kind of a standard thing to do. A lot of bands do that with their early albums and make them fresh again. But I spoke to a few important people, important friends who were very much into Power from Hell in their youth, and they were saying, no, don't record it, don't re-record it. I kind of listened to their points that they made, and I thought, yeah, it's very valid what you're saying. So I felt we needed to do something to celebrate the Power from Hell release. It's very special. So we decided to go away, and we came up with the idea of basically doing a story from Onslaught from day one, or even beyond that, to what led up to the conception of the band and the making of Power from Hell and the albums that followed. So all the cover versions kind of tell a story of how we got to making Onslaught and how we got to making Power from Hell. And then it was kind of cool because we play virtually all the tracks, the Onslaught tracks that we recorded, we play those live nowadays. So the fans are used to hearing those with the guys in the band right now, with Dave singing, etc., etc. So I felt it was kind of cool to let them hear recordings of this band in 2025 playing those songs, and the reception has been incredible, far better than we could have ever imagined. So it's going to be, I think the fans are really going to dig it rather than just a basic copy of Power from Hell, if you like.
I believe it's the main difference that you mentioned. The band has been playing those songs live, but for us fans that you can see Onslaught every day, for us it was surprising to hear this new spirit of old songs. For me, it was very interesting. My question is just about that because it's about the arrangements you chose for these re-recording versions. So it looks like you try to play it like in a live version without many layers on guitars. Sometimes bands put many layers on guitars or all instruments back in the studio, but it sounds a pure live thrash metal songs.
Yeah. I mean, we try to keep things simple. Obviously, if we were making a new album, maybe some additional layers for effect, but those songs, I don't feel they need it. They just need the aggression and the energy, and just bring them to life with the people that are performing them now. I mean, Dave brings a whole new life to those songs, and James's drumming especially, so tight and aggressive drumming style, and it just makes those tracks sound even better. So we just tried to keep it as simple as possible.
It was great. Let There Be Death. I put on repeat mode, and I kept hearing all day long. It reminded me when I was young with my old brother. He used to do it with songs that he enjoyed. It was like
Yeah.
a torture for us because he used to choose the songs that he likes. And nowadays I'm repeat the songs that I like, and I put Let There Be Death for him to hear all day long for 24 hours in a sequence. The second album is about bands that you chose to record covers. I could see that most of them are punk rock bands from the UK. It reminded me of the album Unspotted Attitude from Slayer, playing covers of punk rock bands, but many bands from the United States, and you selected the bands from the UK. How was this selection of the bands to be covered?
It was fairly easy. I think I was never a massive fan of American punk bands. Loved the Ramones and especially the Dead Kennedys, but wasn't a great fan of the rest. I think the British punk movement was much more aggressive and much more heavy in a different way. You know, some of the punk bands like Discharge, Exploited were kind of verging on the metal edge anyway. So that kind of appealed to me when I was younger. But each of those songs has a story to tell. For example, Holidays in the Sun, Sex Pistols. That was the first punk track I'd ever heard. I think I was maybe 12, 13 years old. And there was massive hype in the UK about this new album and new band coming out. So I rushed to the record store for the first day of release and picked up the record, ran home with it, put it on. Holidays in the Sun was the first opening track on the album. And that track changed my life forever. Changed my attitude. It changed my whole enjoyment of music and what kind of music I wanted to listen to, because I was listening to David Bowie, T-Rex and The Sweet and things like that before. And then all of a sudden along came the Sex Pistols with this fucking crazy sound and anger that we'd never heard in music before. So my whole life changed, my attitude changed, everything. And my parents probably didn't like it very much, but if that song or that album was never made, there would have never been Onslaught. And I think many other bands wouldn't have existed without that record. So that's kind of why that's included on the album. And other things like War Pigs is something that we used to jam at rehearsal. Absolute classic Sabbath song. Great lyrics, very simple to play, which was cool for us back in the early days because we could make it sound good in rehearsal. So things like that, we've included that on there for the rehearsal reasons. Discharge, Motorhead, my favorite bands, massively influenced the formation of Onslaught in the early days. So they're included also, and just every track has a story to tell. So it's not just random covers that we've chosen. Oh, that might sound good. Everything had to be perfect and fill in with the story.
I could notice that Discharge is a huge influence as well as Motorhead, because you covered 3 songs from Discharge.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Discharge, I mean, as I say, they're a massive influence for us. And I kind of see a lot of Discharge in Onslaught in a way, because they kind of went through maybe 3 periods of growing as a band. They were very, very raw at the beginning. Then they released the Y album, which was a massive step up. Then came Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing, which was, for me, is probably the ultimate album of all time. Total anger and aggression and insane. And then we were kind of the same, you know. We had Power from Hell, which was kind of basic and raw. Then we went to The Force, we stepped things up, which was probably one of our most liked album by the fans. And then we went to In Search of Sanity. So there's kind of 3 periods of Onslaught, as there were with Discharge. And just each of their phases they went through inspired us to keep on growing ourselves, you know. Incredible band, and they're just as good now. They're even better probably now live than they've ever been. So still inspiring me and still going to watch them on a regular basis.
Amazing. Discharge, I believe, is the most famous band. And from all of these bands you mentioned, Discharge is the most famous here in Brazil.
Yeah.
Of course, Dead Kennedys is huge here as well, but I see many thrash metal bands having Discharge as an influence as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've influenced obviously like Anthrax, Slayer, Metallica, everybody. So huge band. I mean, they deserve to be much bigger than they are.
And as a result of all of these decades of Onslaught on road, you were recently inducted to Metal Hall of Fame during a performance at Maryland Death Fest in 2022. A recognition of your contribution to music over the last 40 years. How was your reaction when you heard about it?
I was completely shocked, to be honest.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, our manager called up one day and said, "Guys, how do you feel about getting inducted into the Metal Hall of Fame. I was like, what the fuck? What's this? I said, yeah, if you want to be there, they want to induct you into Hall of Fame for your services to thrash metal and being such a cool band. Said, of course, we're not going to turn that down ever. Because it's incredible. And to receive the award on stage in the US was awesome. Very cool moment for the band.
It was on the period that it was still recovering about your surgery.
Yeah. I didn't play the show, but I flew over to America with the band just to receive the award. So it was a great day. It was strange watching the band because it was one of my first shows not playing. So it was kind of strange watching the guys on stage without me, but it was cool to watch at the same time because I can kind of see what we're like.
You could check the band as a fan.
Yeah. I was standing at the mixing desk most of the time, telling the sound guy to do this, more drums, more guitars. I have to be involved somehow.
And you have any plans to someday play with 3 guitars on stage?
Nah, I don't think. No, we like to be super tight.
Too much trouble to have three guitars.
No, it's not something we do.
And now returning back to 2009, as I mentioned before, Onslaught came to South America for the first time.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to check the band here in my hometown, Brasília, which is the capital of Brazil. You played in the middle of the week. I believe it was a Thursday or Wednesday. I can't remember. And I remember you played very late at the night. I believe it was almost 1 a.m. How was your impression to come to Brazil for the first time after many years of band? How was your expectations when you arrived here?
Everything was completely as I expected. We had the most incredible tour that first time around. Brasília, if I remember, we were only discussing it the other day. I believe there was a festival in the city that day, and there were no hotels. We had to stay in this. It was a hotel maybe 50 years ago. It was like there was no water in most of the rooms. There was electric wires hanging out the walls, and I remember it was so hot as well. That night was incredibly hot. So yeah, that was not one of the best shows of the tour actually, because it was so late, so hot, and we just didn't get any sleep because we couldn't shower. It was kind of mad, but kind of cool at the same time. You need these experiences on tour to remember things.
But it was a great concert. You played with full of energy despite all the setbacks, but it was incredible.
I just love that whole vibe in Brazil when we came the first time. Played some strange places, but met lots of wonderful people, and the food was amazing.
And you have any plans to return to South America?
Yeah. I can't announce anything right now because it's still not news released yet, but we are returning to Brazil next year. So yeah, I can't really let you know what the shows are yet because they're still being booked. But the main show we're centering everything around is confirmed for us. So hopefully they'll announce news sometime soon, which would be cool. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be excellent. So.
Probably for São Paulo, because São Paulo is a huge city and most of the bands play there. Brasília, it's a very small city. You still have problems like you had trying to find a room at hotel and you couldn't find.
Yeah.
but at least our culture to receive bands from outside from Brazil is getting better from the last 5 or 6 years. You are receiving good structures nowadays to receive bands.
Yeah, but not many bands were coming to South America at the time when we came the first time, and the experience was just amazing. You couldn't buy that experience if you were a billionaire. It was just incredible. Everything was a high for us, and to visit this new world to us, basically, was unforgettable. Never forget it because it was so good.
I'm glad you had a good experience despite all the setbacks. How is the band's plan for now after releasing the new album, Origins of Aggression?
Basically, lots of touring. We're still booking in shows now. Festivals over the summer. We're going to Australia for the first time
Nice.
later in the year, which is incredible. It's been on our bucket list for many years now. Strangely, we haven't been there, but we're going there. I think early November, which is going to be amazing. I think we're doing some other kind of cool shows on the way to Australia and on the way back to break up the long flights. I think we may be doing India, China, Dubai, and stuff like that. So a lot of new territories for us to play, which is what we tried to do as much as possible.
I believe you tour in the UK as well.
No, we're playing an exclusive show this year in the UK at Damnation Festival. So we're not doing. We did some Scottish dates last weekend, but they're warm-ups for our upcoming tours. But there is no UK tour this year. We're planning early 2026 to do a full tour. So as I said, we're doing a very special Power from Hell show at Damnation Festival where we're gonna put on a real big show for the fans, so that's something to look forward to. Really, really nice.
And if you have enjoyed the band, please follow them on all social medias. I will let all the links on the description. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next interview. Bye bye.
I just thank you for all your support over 43 years. You've been incredible. We wouldn't be here without you guys, So, I mean, and for people like yourself spreading the word of Onslaught still after all this time and still loving the music we make, we just can't thank you enough, it's incredible. So please check out the new album. I think you'll find it very interesting and very cool. It's a little different from what many other bands do, but it's kind of enjoyable and it is very Onslaught at the same time.
Have I bought mine? I'm waiting the ship overseas. That takes a few days to arrive here. That's it, mate. Thanks a lot, Nige. See you the next time.